A turnaround demands bold reforms and a fundamental shift in economic philosophy. In Uganda, this transformation is driven by what we know as Musevenomics. Musevenomics represents the economic management policies and philosophy implemented by President Yoweri Museveni that have transformed Uganda from a failed state in 1986 to one of Africa's most promising and stable economies today. Musevenomics seeks to transform Uganda into an independent, integrated, self-sustaining upper-middle-income economy by 2040 where every Ugandan prospers. Musevenomics is not just about the economic history of Uganda, it's our roadmap to prosperity. By 2040, this philosophy aims to deliver a $500 billion economy, making us better than Denmark at $449 billion, Malaysia $444 billion, Philippines $497 billion, and in the same league with Norway, which is $504 billion. Such an economy means better healthcare, education, infrastructure, and living standards for every Ugandan family from Kampala to the remotest villages. Musevenomics is more than numbers and policies. It is a promise of prosperity based on a solid foundation and gains. Musevenomics for my country and my development.
My name is Janet Mutas. I want to welcome you to our discussion today. We're going to be talking about a topic that everyone has had and probably is interested in. With me, I have Dr. Katende Edward, the Executive Director, Uganda Development Forum. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Anna.
And our topic for today is the big giant that has been making ground silently but loud.
Yeah.
Come up to actually address it so much, though a bit of last year there was a conference that happened in Misteel about the same. But today I want to hear from you because you're the big man behind the big giant that is being talked about, Musevenomics. What is Musevenomics and how did it come up? Musevenomics is a very intriguing term. So how did you come up with that term of Musevenomics?
Yeah, Musevenomics was coined by economists at Operation Wealth Creation in 2020. It represents the economic policies and philosophy of government of Uganda under the leadership of President Yoweri Museveni, which have been applied to transform our economy from a failed state in 1986 to one of Africa's most promising and stable economies today. Of course, it comes from two words.
Okay.
One word is Museveni,
Yes,
who
true.
is the economic philosopher.
Yes.
And the second is nomics, which comes from a Greek word, nomos,
Okay.
which means management. So when you put both together, you get Musevenomics. And it's not a new approach to naming economic thinking. In the US, they have Reaganomics. Recently, they have been talking about Trumponomics after President Trump. In Japan, they had Abenomics after Prime Minister Abe, whose economic policies enabled the Japanese economy to recover from recession, one of the world's biggest economies. Of course, in Britain, they studied about Margaret Thatcher, and they call them Thatcherite policies.
Okay.
So for us in Uganda, we are not reinventing the wheel. We are not praising the president. We are basically doing what leader economic thinkers across the world have done to recognize a philosophy that is suitable for a particular country. So Musevenomics works for countries that were previously colonized. They went through a prolonged civil conflict. The economy collapsed. It was more like lifeless. If there is a Lazarus in the Bible that needed resurrecting.
Sure.
So that resurrection is required to help the economy recover, and when it makes it, the principles and the policies and the philosophy for us as Uganda, we put them together as Musevenomics. And they are unique to Uganda.
Okay.
It's not that when you go to Ethiopia, you'll find the Ethiopians doing the same thing.
True.
It is a Ugandan intervention, which can also be used by any African country that was colonized, that has been through a prolonged civil conflict, and the economies has collapsed. For example, Sudan, for example, Somalia, DRC. Some of them can use our approach and to recover and become a promising economy.
Okay, that's interesting. So, from what I understand, Musevenomics is an economic philosophy that has helped Uganda come from a failed state to a now promising state. So, when President Museveni, because he's the man in the Musevenomics, when he assumed power in 1986, there were so many challenges that happened. So, how has he used Musevenomics to address these challenges?
Of course, one has to paint the picture of the Ugandan economy in 1986. The president told us to study the economy of Uganda even before 1986.
Yes.
He set 6 questions to the economy start of national wealth creation, led by General Saleh. The first question is that all Ugandans must appreciate. But what was the economy of Uganda like before colonialism,
Yes,
before
true.
1900? If you appreciate what we used to be, a lot of the history talks about the political situation in Uganda, the governance, but very little on the economics. So we want to appreciate what was the economy like before the white man came to colonize us. Then what was it during the colonial time between 1900 and 1960? What was it at 1962? What was it like? Then you need to look at that economy. Between 1962 and 1971, we were doing well. But when Idi Amin took over, many problems came up. So until 1986, we were isolated by the international community. He chased away the Ugandan Asians who were controlling 90% of our entrepreneurship in the country. The country, of course, was faced in international embargoes. There was scarcity of goods. So between 1971 and 1986, Musevenomics asks, what was the magnitude of collapse between that period? And therefore, what was the economy like in 1986, which was your question?
I actually want to come in and ask, how was the economy like then? Because people would want to understand, because you said a failed state. So people would want to know how failed were we? How was the economy then? And just a few highlights on how the economy
The
is.
prices of goods and services used to change almost every week.
Okay.
There was a scarcity, what they call magend. There was black market. So things that we take for granted today, like sugar, were not available. Even if you had the money, you could not find the sugar to take. So prices were changing every now and then. Foreign currency was not readily available. You had to apply to Bank of Uganda. If you are to travel today, you want to go to Mombasa or you want to go to Dubai, you had to apply to Bank of Uganda. We even had window 1, window 2 for priorities.
Yes.
The life expectancy, men used to live, most men used to die before the age of 41. Women were dying at before the age of 49. Today, we live up to 68 years. The average life expectancy of a Ugandan is 8 years. If you today you die at 50, you'll have died a young man. But in 1986, a 50-year-old was an old man. Even President Museveni was 42 in 1986. But they called him Muzee because he was above the age that most men used to die. Diseases like measles, polio, were killing us, our children. The malaria was killing us in numbers. So most kids would never become adults.
Yes.
HIV set in and started killing our professionals, our fighters, and the president had to come in and intervene. Many Ugandans were living, 400,000 of us were living in exile. 1.2 million Ugandans were internally displaced. If you drive up to Matuga, it was a danger zone. Nobody lived there. People had vacated a big chunk of land. People were surviving on subsistence farming. So scarcity of goods and services. So it was a difficult situation. It is that dire situation that many people across the world thought we could not turn around our economic fortunes probably in a century. So the president looked at their situation and said to turn it around will require what he called a fundamental change.
Okay.
It required radical interventions. And it is those radical interventions that today have become known as Musevenomics.
Okay, it's very interesting. And I think we can all appreciate that a lot has happened, a lot has changed. That's how the situation was then, telling from stories that our parents have told us, our grandparents have told us. I think it was very terrible. So for that, I'll appreciate that he has done a good job. But there are so many African countries that went through the same conflicts, the same challenges, because there are many that were colonized. So what made the government think that Uganda would be different, that would actually chart the course?
Of course, there is the uniqueness of Musevenomics lies in the ability of the government of Uganda to pick the best from different economic schools of thought. For example, is what we call Western capitalism, where the private sector leads. It's free market economy where you, for example, if you are to look at the foreign exchange market, there is a buyer and a seller. The central bank only comes in to regulate. But if I want dollars today, I will walk to a forex bureau and buy the dollars. In the previous years, it was government in charge of all that. So that is part of the good things we borrowed from Western capitalism, like in Europe, in the US, where there is greed and good greed, which enables the economy to grow because the greedy people want to expand. They create opportunities for employment. Other people will come and work for them, so everybody benefits. That is Western capitalism. But also, in his young days, the president read a lot of books and was influenced by socialist thinking that I cannot be poor when my neighbor is poor. So in Asia, the Asians have the Asian development model, where the state plays a very big role in the development of the country. So we pick some lessons to say, look, as a country, we can invest in strategic areas which we cannot leave to the private sector. Like security is government.
It's government.
Energy generation is government. Even distribution. But later on, they said, okay, because there is not enough money, in 1986, there was no money in, despite all those problems, there was no money in the coffers, the government coffers. So because you don't have the money, so what do? The government then said, let me privatize the distribution. Now Umeme came in.
Yes.
But they said you cannot do it because it's strategic. You cannot do it forever. We're only giving you 25 years. Because we expected within 25 years, things will have changed. And they did. And when they changed, Umeme came back to, distribution came back.
To us.
So government is investing in health, in education, much as the private sector is there. But the government appreciates that there are many Ugandans who cannot afford school fees.
I think, Mr. Katende, if I may come in, because I was actually going to ask you, has the private sector played a role in the development of this country?
Yeah, that's now where you're borrowing from the Asian development model, where you say the private sector will not always get it right.
Yes.
So the government must come in to intervene in those strategic areas, like education, like infrastructure, like health. And then later on, we also had our own models as Africa, which we call African communalism. For example, what in Uganda you call Bulungi Bwansi. I saw it in Chisoro, I see it in other parts of the country, where the community takes on responsibility, for example, to look after their infrastructure. The collective actions that we take as a community and we invest. These days you're seeing investment clubs coming up. This is an African way of doing things. So Musevenomics picks the best from Western capitalism, which I have explained, from Asian development model, but also from our own African way of doing things, and they come up with a recipe of activities and interventions that are unique, that are not, you will not find them in Europe,
in anywhere else.
You will not find them in Asia, but they are unique to us as a country. And it's because of that Musevenomics has worked in Uganda. And the countries that have actually been through what we have been through have picked a leaf from us. Like countries like Burundi, like Rwanda, they have picked a leaf from us and have implemented our thinking and philosophy and the results are very good. So we believe that our neighbors like Sudan, DRC, our African friends like say, Somalia, Central African Republic that have been through or are going through the same problems we went through can pick a big leaf from us.
And use it.
But does it only work? Is it only relevant for for other countries, for leaders, for presidents? No. Even in Uganda, the Musevenomics principles and pillars must be understood by leaders at all levels. It has to be understood by the leaders in the central government, by the leaders at the local level, district level, sub-county, parish, but even in our homes. As a husband, you can apply the pillars of Musevenomics and see real fundamental change in the development of your household.
I think, Mr. Katende, you're reading my mind a lot, because now I was coming to ask you this Musevenomics. Sorry, it should have a foundation. What are the pillars or principles that govern Musevenomics?
So Musevenomics is anchored on 7 pillars. The pillars enable us to understand why President Museveni and his government do things the way they do them. For example, why do they introduce PDM and run PDM the way it is? So those are pillars, and there are 7. The first pillar, very quickly, is about rationality. Rationality is about data collection, is about evidence-based decision making. As a fighter, General Museveni knows very well that you cannot win any war if you do not have the right intelligence. So that pillar of rationality is based on getting as much evidence as possible about the development landscape, about poverty. Because now the modern war is, the enemy is poverty. So if you are to win poverty, you need to understand, where are the poor? Who are they? What do they do? How do they live? What is their behavior like? So you capture all of that data. What assets do they have that we can use to enable them create wealth? So that is pillar number one. The second pillar is about reasonableness. Reasonableness is about putting the context, things in context. For example, you cannot talk about reforming the land tenure system in Uganda and use the same approach in Acholi or in Karamoja. In Uganda, the land tenure system is different. In Karamoja, it is owned by the community. Here, we have a few people who own the land. So you cannot then apply the same mechanism. So what works in Toro may not work in Isogard, may not work in Buganda. So as policies are developed, they have to be tailored to the actual context of the country and also the district. So you cannot say Tanzania is doing X, Y, Z, so Uganda must do it. No, we have to be reasonable. The third one is realism. It's about being realistic. Realistic about the situation that we are in. So there is what we call desirable and what is implementable. The people of Chisoro, for example, have hills. Similar landscape, say, to Switzerland. In Switzerland, they have cable cars moving from one hill to another. So the people of Chisolo may say, oh, we can have cable cars in Chisolo. They are not realistic because they have no power. And so while the terrain, it can be supportive, but it is desirable but not implementable.
Technology,
immediately. But it can be done over years if you put the right things in place. So that also moves with adaptability. Adaptability is being flexible. That regardless of your situation as a country, you need to adapt to the realities of on the ground. President Museveni in 1986 believed in socialism. He had Marxist thinking. And he used to criticize the West. He used to criticize the capitalists. But when he became president, reality kicked in. He saw how much money he had in the coffers and the pressure that he had to turn around the fortunes of the country. And the people who had money are the people he had previously criticized. So he had to bring them on the table and do a deal. Of course, they came with a long list of conditions that for us to give you the money, you need to do X, Y, Z. He accepted only 76%. The 24% he rejected. But even the 76 he accepted, it was painful. But at that time, it was the only thing,
It was only solution.
solution. So that is being adaptable and flexible.
Okay.
Then there is another one of logic. The logic moves with rationality, with our first pillar.
Okay.
That you cannot do everything at once. You have no resources. Even if you have all the money in the world, you may not have the human resource.
Yes.
You may not have the land. The laws may not be beneficial. So you decided to say, what do we do? So in 1986, the first thing he had to do was to stabilize the country, to make sure the war ends. He had 56 rebel groups to fight. Some were in the government he fought. Some were people from his own government, like Itongwa and others. So he had to fight so many different people. So he had to ensure that there is stability. By 1992, we had pacified over 35 districts. That time there were fewer districts.
Yes.
But then there was macroeconomic stability. That how do you bring inflation under control? How do you ensure the foreign exchange is readily available? So those were the first things you had to tackle. Once you have done that, he also said Uganda's biggest problems were three. There was the poverty, ignorance, and the disease.
Okay.
So you had to now make sure that the human being, the human capital of the country is safeguarded. We needed skilled Ugandans who are healthy. So he first invested in health, in immunization campaigns right from 1997. In the fight against HIV, there was no drug. People were dying. So he had to make sure he safeguards our health. Now, having moved on the health side, then he said, I need to skill them. He found out using rationality, the data, that people were not able to take their children to school because of lack of school fees. So in 1997, he introduced universal primary education, UPE, and many Ugandans have now gone through that.
Yeah, so many.
But also using the other pillar of realism, he knew that the money available could not enable him to educate primary school and secondary school and university. So he started with UPE. By 2007, he introduced universal secondary education because now we have built some money.
Yes.
So USE came in. Then later on, he introduced quota systems at universities. That districts like Chisoro, districts like Karamoja would also have their children going into university. Previously, it was about the Kampala schools.
Yes.
The children of the rich were the ones going to universities. But he introduced quota systems. He introduced 1.5 in universities for women, for girls to join university and get university education. So over years, we have improved. And now that we have the human capital, he was now also at the same time investing in infrastructure, the roads. After the war, because we pacified Uganda in 2006. The last war was against Joseph Kony. From 2006, we have been peaceful. And during that time, we will now move the budget from security, reduce the security budget, and invest in infrastructure. So you have seen many roads are moving. We have over 46 dams. Of course, we have the big ones like Owen Falls, Simba, Karuma, Bujagad. But we have invested in power generation. We have invested in roads. We have invested in health infrastructure. We have invested in cyber, the cable to support our internet. And so now all the young people are using their phones, they're on TikTok, because the cost of internet has gone down. Accessibility is there because of that investment in infrastructure. Now, once you've got those investments, you can now talk about industrialization. That is logic.
True.
So the other pillar is sovereignty, which means you need to have independence in economic decision making. We make our economic decisions as a country, as Uganda, but that does not mean we'll be cutting ourselves off to the world. We do that, but we look for strategic partnerships. Those people who believe in our economic philosophy, those people who want to partner with us and look to us as partners and not subordinates or a colony. So we have been going to the whole world. You will go to Asia, you will go to the West, you will go to South America and partner with them. As we speak, we have so many various partners, but it is guided by sovereignty. mutual respect, mutual interest, and then we work together. So that is sovereignty. The other one is about resilience, that we must build resilience in our economy. Back in the days, Uganda's economy, especially on exports, we relied heavily on coffee. By 1986, 90% of our exports were coming from coffee. So we had, and if there was any change in the prices of coffee anywhere in the world, the Ugandan economy will collapse, will suffer. So the president came and diversified the production base. So instead of just relying on cash crops and food crops, now everything we grow at home we can sell. As a result, we are exporting flowers, we are exporting fish, we are exporting cotton, we're exporting milk. We used to import milk from Kenya, but now we are exporting milk. So we have diversified, and that if there is a shock in coffee, the other sectors will. But also, the service sector is growing very fast. So as we speak now, the service sector contributes about 42% to GDP. Agriculture is at 26. We are no longer heavily dependent on agriculture, but industry is also coming. Industry is at 24%. So if one sector is affected, like during COVID-19, some sectors were affected, but we were able to still grow while everybody across the world was in negative growth. In Europe, they were not growing, was negative, but us were able to grow at 3.5%. Why? Some sectors which he called there was a vulnerable and real economy. So in the real economy is where he put his focus to make sure that construction continues, agriculture continues, but tourism was closed, schools were closed. But so the sectors which were useful in the real economy, where growth was coming from, he pumped money there. But that is about building resilience. We build resilience by having our foreign reserves, forex reserves, so that the shilling now is a very strong currency because we have built our own reserves. In 1986, the forex reserves we had would only last us about 2 weeks of import. Today, our foreign reserves enable us to have an import cover of 4 months. Bank of Uganda started buying gold, build gold reserves that will shield the shilling, because you are seeing on the international stage, the dollar has been struggling. So if you're pegging the strength of your currency on the dollar, you will be in trouble. So we are now building our own gold reserves to cushion the shilling. We have fuel reserves, which when we import our fuel in the country, we put some in the reserve, so that if the global fuel prices or supply chain is disturbed, we still have something in the reserve. So that is building economic resilience. And the last one is about inclusivity. Inclusivity in the sense that nobody should be left behind. As we grow, all Ugandans must grow, so that it's basically about shared prosperity. There's no point saying we have 20 billionaires, but then other Ugandans are just cannot even afford food. So the interventions you're bringing in, like PDM, like Emyoga, Entandikwabo, Nabagakawale, people criticize him, but they don't understand the logic, the philosophy. The philosophy was nobody should be left behind. We are growing with everybody. So if you apply those 7 pillars as an LC5 chairman or cow, as a sub-county chief, as LC2 chairman, as LC1 chairman, as a husband or a head of a family, all those 7 pillars can be applicable. You must be rational, you must be realistic, reasonable, logical. You must build resilience in your home. When Musei talks about the 4-acre model at a house, he's now bringing that resilience from top up there to the household. So the 4-acre model enables the household to build resilience. That if I'm growing coffee on 1 acre, I have a dairy cow, I have some fish farming somewhere, I have my own food in the household. So if one of the enterprises is affected, at least I have a fallback position. That's what he's saying. Let's build resilience at a household level. So if you have all the 7 principles, even in your home,
Yes.
inclusion works. Your wife should not be sitting at home doing nothing. As a husband, you go, you hunt. The wife also must have something, because during the tough times, you never know.
What might
Her
happen.
income
Yes.
can bail the household out. But even the children must be encouraged to start thinking big, to see that they are contributing. No children should stay at home when others are going to school, because in 20, 30 years later, those who are not going to school may probably be the slaves or the laborers for those who have gone to school. But bring everybody out.
Yes.
So as you can see, Musevenomics is not only for government. It applies in government, it applies in the private sector, it can be applicable in our homes.
Thank you so much. And I think my key takeouts from the pillars of Musevenomics are resilience, how Uganda is building its capacity to make sure we're not shaken in case of anything happens. And my most is the fact that we're not leaving anyone behind. That's a very important one, because we're all one, we're all in the same country. So I feel like it's not fair when other people grow and some are left behind. So if the Musevenomics philosophy is about not leaving anyone behind, I think it's a philosophy that we need to push all of us, because I don't want to remain behind, and I'm sure you don't want to remain behind. So we should support it. So, Mr. Katenda, with the interest of time, I understand Musevenomics is under some principles. I think there are about 12.
Yes.
I don't want us to explain them, because we're going to keep having many of these episodes. So we're going to talk about many these principles in detail. So just to give a highlight, what are these principles of Musevenomics?
Of course, like I said, the pillars enable us to know or understand why Museveni and his government do the things the way they do them. So principles enable us to know what they have done or what they do. Pillars, why they do what they do.
What they do.
Principles is what they do. And those are the strategic intervention.
Yes.
These are the things his government has done, Museveni's government has done since consistently since 1986. There are certain things they do and leave because they are short term, but the things they have done consistently for the last 39 years. And even when you look into the future, if you look in the National Development Plan 4, if you look at what they call the 10-fold growth strategy, they want to grow our economy 10 times to become a very big economy. Even when you look into that, if you look at his manifesto for the next 5 years, you will still see all these 12 things. So he has been consistent. So those 12 things are: one, security first. Is security number one. Security first. You cannot grow as in a country, you can't develop without security. The number two is liberalization and strategic state control, which I have explained previously. The private sector has a role to play, but also the government comes in and invests in strategic areas. Number three is the economic integration and market expansion. He looks at the East African community as a big market, but also as a foundation for the unification of Africa. If we have over 1 billion people in Africa, that is a very big market, but we are not trading with each other. So he wants us to trade with our fellow Africans. Even within the country, we must trade with each other. That's why tribalism, according to him, is not good. If I am a Munankole, I have my milk. The Muganda who does not look after cattle needs to buy milk. So he's my customer. So as Africa, in his view, integration is crucial. But also the market expansion, that we know, we look beyond Africa. We look at other partners, like in Asia, like in America, like South America, and become our trading partners. We need each other to survive. So that is principle number three. Principle number four is on infrastructure development, investment in roads, in power, in energy, in bridges. The principle number five is value addition and industrialization, which is very plain. Principle number six is what he calls monetizing the subsistence economy. So interventions like PDM, Myoga, all that. Principle number seven is human capital development, investment in education, investment in health. Principle number eight is fighting corruption. That one
from 1986.
Big giant
He has
in
been
Uganda.
talking about it. It's a big giant. Like, I'm sure one day we'll have a conversation. But
Yes.
that's an area where I think we will even need a national dialogue
Yes.
around it. The other principle is reducing the cost of doing business.
Yes.
There are 6 areas: the cost of finance, reducing it,
Mm.
cost of the regulation itself.
Mm.
Sometimes it will take you a year to register a company.
Mm.
Now he is trying to reduce that.
Yeah, it now takes
Yeah,
3
probably
hours.
3 hours.
Yeah.
You have your company.
Mm.
So when you look at all these, you can see that there are things that he has consistently done. There's digital transformation,
Mm.
which, of course, if you look at, for example, the communication sector, 1986, there was only one TV,
Mm.
one radio station. Now you have over 350 radio
Yes.
stations. You have over 70 television statement,
Mm.
TV stations, without talking about the digital, the online television sets.
Mm.
So these are the 12 areas where he has consistently invested.
Mm.
Of course, the degree of investment
Mm.
has varied
Yes, true.
based on the the pillars,
The pillars, yeah.
so of logic, of rationality.
Yes.
Blah, blah.
Mm.
So there was a time when he invested a lot in security,
Mm.
but he put some money in
In
other
yeah, in
areas.
health
Then
and
later on,
others.
things have been changing. Now the
Yes.
focus is on industries.
Mm.
Why? We want to be a very big economy, 500 billion people, 500 billion
Dollar
dollars,
economy.
which means better infrastructure, better schools, better health sector, a lot of money in
Mm.
the pocket. Tourism will be booming.
Mm.
So it's that kind of life
Mm.
which he thinks will be built around agro-industrialization, tourism, mineral beneficiation, basically adding value to our mineral products, science, technology, innovation, which includes also the creative industry, the musicians, the artists. These are the guys who do katemba. So all of that fall under STI. And if we invest in those areas, the economy will grow faster. More Ugandans, using the principle of inclusivity, especially the youth, will be included in that growth.
Just like our Minister of Finance, what he says that the economy will, you can finish it. So I believe with with Musevenomics, the economy will be up there. So I think you have talked about this, but I just want you to share with us Musevenomics. What are the outcomes of Musevenomics? Do you see any impact? Has it created any impact of Musevenomics?
Yeah, certainly the impact is great. First of all, we have many people who are now educated. Many people are educated. When I went to school, my grandmother used to tell me she missed a number of opportunities because she could not read and write. So many people now can read and write. Literacy levels are high. There are many people who are trained, who are skilled. We live longer, 68 years now. We live longer than ever before because of the investments in education, in fighting poverty, in immunization campaign. So we now live much longer. If you look at the infrastructure, the amount of power we are producing, that even villages that were previously not connected to the grid, we have power. The grid aside, you have solar. We are now even going into other sources of energy like gas, taking gas to the rural areas, taking gas to the Ugandans. If you look at, for example, security, we have been at peace since 2006. There is no war to fight internally. But of course, we go to ensure we pacify our neighbors across Africa, because those ones who will hurt us, they hide in those countries. Like those who have been hiding in DRC, they came and bombed Kampala and ran back. So we have to pursue them up to Congo. So, but that aside, as a country, we have been stable. In terms of growth, we have been consistently growing between 6 and 7% for a very long time. I even say that even during COVID, we were able to grow by 3.5%. Of course, there are still a lot to do. For example, in terms of getting jobs for our young people.
Yes, employment.
And that I think should be the next level of the next battleground. How do we get jobs for our young people? That's why he's now pushing a lot of effort into industrialization, into science, technology, and innovation. We will have many young people employing themselves on TikTok, selling their goods online, and get paid without having to break a sweat. But that's now his next battleground. How do I now? All the fundamentals are there. The roads are there. The power is there. Internet is readily available, and what have you. But how now do I create jobs for these young people that are going to live even longer than 68 years? Because by the time most of the young people get to their old age, it is expected that our life expectancy would have reached about 80 years. And that creates another problem. So he has to prepare them early enough, create jobs for them. And that's why you are seeing investments in the likes of parish development model, in yoga, skilling programs, and even capital flowing into those areas. Because he has now identified poverty and unemployment as his next frontier, where he will now fight. And we know as a fighter, there is no war he has got involved in and he has not won. And I think even for poverty and unemployment, we will certainly win this. Uganda is resilient, Uganda is progressive, and we certainly have a better future.
So in short, these are the gains we're trying to protect.
Of course, these are the gains. When they talk about protecting the gains, these are the things that we already have in the bag. When I was a little boy, in school, they would tell you that there are two types of students. There's a student, the wise student, goes for the easy marks first. Put the easy marks first, and then you go for the tough ones. Then there's that kid that never passed. For him, as soon as he opens the paper, he wants to try any number that he comes up with. So he starts with a difficult number. It does what the Muzungu is doing my head in. It confuses him, and then at the end of the day, the examiner says, time up, and he has not finished. So what we have done is to focus on those marks. We have put the marks. So people can now earn. We have the means to earn. So that cannot be taken for granted. Now, what we now need to do is now go for the tough ones. But you find a number of young people focusing on the unrealistic, the desirable, under the other pillar of realism. The desire, that is, we all want to be like this. But forgetting our circumstances as a country.
We have different
so
problems as a
the
country.
gains are those things that we have. Now that we know we are healthy, now that we know we are educated, now that we have the good roads, we have the trains are coming. We now that we are even going, we have hosted Chan. 2027 we will host the Africa Cup of Nations. We can be like Morocco in the next 10, 15 years and host the World Cup here.
True.
So, but for you to host the World Cup, for you to host Africa Cup of Nations, you have held NAM here, you need to protect what we have achieved, what is already in the bag, and use that as a foundation for the bigger things.
Above it all is the security that we have in Uganda.
Yes. Can't take it for granted.
Yes, true. Thank you so much, Mr. Katende. As we come to a conclusion of our discussion today, I want you to go back and explain in layman's language, just Musevenomics. You can even use Luganda if you feel you need to explain it further. What is Musevenomics? Musevenomics chechichi in short terms.
Musevenomics yenkola eya gavumenti ya Uganda ekulembwa Yoweri Museveni. Eyambye Uganda okukyuka okuva mu ggwanga eryali ligudde ng'ebintu byabbula, ng'endwadde nnyingi, abantu baffe nga tebasoma, ng'obulamu buzibu nnyo. Netutuusa wano, enkola eyo etutuusizza wano ng'abantu baffe kaakati basomye, ng'ebintu tibikyali byabbula, sukaali waali, munnyo weeguli, sabbuuni waali, ebintu bye tulowooza nti kati tubiraba buli wantu, n'emmere abantu abamu baalyanga kimu, naye okutuuka kati nga emmere erabika nga weeri, nga ne bwoba ne ssente luli ng'oluusi oyinza okubulwa ogula emmere. Kakati eyo enkola eya gavumenti ekulembera Pulezidenti Yoweri Museveni gy'azze akola, era n'endowooza ye n'enzikiriza ye tuleetedde Uganda okuva mu eryo eggwanga eryali libonaabona ne batutuusa wano abalala we batwegombera tibajja okuva Angola bajja okuva mu West Africa ne bajja okutuyigirako tebajja wano okuyiga ku byakulwana tebajja wano okuyiga ku bya byobufuzi bajja wano okuyiga Museveni ne gavumenti baddukanyizza batya ekonome nebeera nti ne covid bwe yalumba ensi yonna n'amawanga amagagga ennyo gaagwa naye yo Uganda yasigala ekyali y'amaanyi ekonomi yayo ng'ekula bo bakikola batya so yeeyo Musevenomics enkola eyaffe ya Uganda etufudde kankiyite ekyama ekyekyama ekiyambye Uganda okuva mu ggwanga liri eryali lyagwa nga buli muntu agamba saagala Uganda okugituusa wano buli muntu wagyegombera oba mufuzi oba beebweru oba ffe bannayuganda ffenna kakati buli omu ayagala okubeera obulungi kati ekyama ekyo ekitufudde ekyewuunyisa mu byenkulaakulana ku lukalu lwa Africa ne kitutuusa wano era ekigenda okututwala kweyo gye tuyita ensi ensuubizi nga tulina enguudo ez'amaanyi nga tulina eggaali ez'omukka nga tulina amasannyalaze nga tulina amasomero amalungi ekyama ekyo kyeki ye Musevenomics.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Katende, for your time. Thank you, our dear viewers. Today we have tackled Musevenomics, and I think I have learned a lot myself, and I'm sure you have learned a lot. So in short terms, Musevenomics is a philosophy that has transformed Uganda from a failed state, a state where no one wanted to associate with, a state that was abandoned, but to a state that it is today, a state that is growing, where everyone wants to associate with. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you for your time. Thank you.